time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on kind of a stormy afternoon in the upstate of South Carolina. We've made the ride up to Greenville to the always beautiful campus of Furman University. And the football program here is buzzing once again. Of course, at one point, it was one of the pristine football programs in the country at the FCS level or the Division 1 AA level, whatever it happened to be, under Dick Sheridan, under Jimmy Satterfield, under Bobby Johnson, and now under Clay Hendricks. A major resurgence taking place here in Greenville with the Paladins, team that made the playoffs last year, and now preseason top 25 pick. Expectations are high, and they'll be opening their season about 30 miles west of here at a place called Death Valley, a program known for knocking off the big boys. We'll get a chance to take on one of the biggest boys right out of the blocks. And we'll be talking to Clay Hendricks. We'll be talking with senior offensive lineman Jalen Reed and sophomore running back Darius Moorhead tonight here on Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut at Paladin Stadium at the base of Paris Mountain, sitting in the background. It's always a beautiful view here during the fall. Will Pelagic back in our studios in Columbia with the Professor Tom Hayes. Our phone number, 800-956-7266. Love to hear from you tonight. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. We've got USC coverage today. The Gamecocks practice for you. Practice this morning, and we'll have that covered for you as well, plus more from the Clemson side of things. So the Tigers did not have a media avail today. We've got the PGA Championship going on in St. Louis. We've got the Money Coach coming up, a visit from Mike Morgan. And so we have a full load of great stuff for you tonight here on Sports Talk. But, guys, I always love coming up to the upstate and coming to Furman. Great tradition here. And it certainly looks like after 1 year, the former Paladin assistant coach and Paladin player, Clay Hendricks, has this program moving once again in a positive direction.
You know, Corn, it's interesting. They had themselves in a position with that playoff game last year against Wofford to really kind of turn their season into something completely unexpected. I think that, you know, to expect the kind of turnaround that they had last year, they basically were playing with house money going into the postseason. But now I think the expectations are amped up. You mentioned the game at Clemson, and while that is difficult, you would look at the conference schedule and say that it's rather manageable at East Tennessee, which is not going to be fun, but you get Wofford at home, you get Sanford at home, you get Chattanooga at home. Your road trips are the Citadel in State, at VMI, at Mercer. That's I would call it a manageable schedule for a Paladin team that brings a lot back.
I had something to say, but I got shocked at something I just saw on the crawl on ESPN. I'll divulge that information quickly, but first of all, Furman, I still think I'm correct in this, is the only private school to win an FCS title. Corn, you described the right at the foothills, right at the mountains. A kid, you know, if you go to Furman and see that campus, hey, where do I sign? I mean, because I think, you know, many people say it's the Citadel, but I've always said that I thought Furman was the most picturesque campus in South Carolina. And when they've been going great guns, let's face it, Phil, they had some good talent out of South Carolina, but they augmented that with getting some kids out of North Carolina and especially out of Georgia. So Clay Hendricks, I think, is resurrecting that formula as far as recruiting is concerned. And Furman is on an upward tick.
No question about it.
Oh, by the way, Bill Snyder, 78 years old, just agreed to a 5-year deal.
That's crazy.
With Kansas State.
That was your thing you saw on the call? That's
I
nuts.
said, wow.
Somewhere Brent Venables is saying, "Dadgummit, when is the guy going to leave so I can become the head coach at my alma mater?"
He won't fulfill that whole contract. You know that. You know that's done for recruiting purposes, Corn, so that things that happen, like say here in South Carolina, when the head coach might have said, "Oh, I'm going to leave in about 2 or 3 years," to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen. The departure is supposed to be sudden and not predetermined. We found that out the hard way here.
All right, as far as USC and Clemson go, Will, you were over at USC this morning to catch the Gamecocks when they came off the practice field. We heard from Dan Werner, the quarterback guru, the quarterback whisperer. And overall, your take on how he feels about what's happening there with the quarterback position.
Well, we couldn't see anything today from either the Gamecocks or Clemson. Both their practices were fully closed today. But the one thing that did impress me was not only just talking to Dan Werner, but kind of trying to pick his brain about where he feels about the Gamecock signal callers. The one thing I think that surprised me, and again, you have to take his word for it and maybe wait to see what happens on the field if you get to see him on the field, is that he's really encouraged by the progress of the Carry-On Joyner. He didn't necessarily say that he had supplanted Michael Scarnecchia as the backup quarterback yet. Many believe that at least Scar is going to be that number 2 behind Jake Bentley, but they've seen some encouraging things out of Joyner. I know that when we saw him in the spring, he was kind of trusting his legs a little bit too much and not necessarily trusting his arm. I asked him about that. He said he is beginning to trust his arm more. And some of the things, too, that Werner had to say were very, very complimentary of Jake Bentley. He called Bentley one of the best he's been around, a born leader and somebody who certainly can bring South Carolina to the forefront with a good junior season. And he also was complimentary about the wide receivers, calling them among the best he's been around. And also, we picked his brain a little bit about how they went to rebuild this Gamecock offense. There's a lot of stuff that he took from his time at Mississippi and also from Alabama. But they did also leave some stuff in the kitty from last year, some of the stuff that they did do well, because he did say that they ran a lot of good plays last year, although I'm struggling to find more than maybe a dozen, but that's just my own opinion.
And the players talking about as well, going fast, going 7 seconds per play and that kind of stuff, which has been part of what South Carolina is trying to do with this new offense pro. But as we've heard coaches say, including a guy like Chad Morris, who spoke about it at SEC Media Day, and he would know as much about this as anybody. I mean, going fast is fine, but you don't have to go lickety-split on every play. Sometimes you huddle up. It's about controlling the pace and making the defense play at your pace, whether it's going really fast or huddling up a little bit and looking to the sideline and getting a call there and slowing down the pace a little bit.
And I think that's to throw the defense off as well, because a lot of times we see these teams that run the fast offenses that are very good at it. A lot of the defensive players don't have time to read their keys. Because it's done very quickly. When you go on a long count, a lot of times guys see where guys line up even when they shift, and that'll cost you sometimes as far as a good offensive play is concerned. But Dan Werner, I kind of like what I've read and heard from him early on, because he seems to be a guy that knows the key to a quarterback is giving him a sense of urgency by getting him to relax. What are you comfortable with? What do you like to do? Here's the way we're going to do it, and have the quarterback have some input in how things are going to go, because I think the quarterback is really comfortable when they think they got a guy who can really deal with play calling and developing offenses that knows what he's doing.
And more to Corn's point, Pro, the ability to control the tempo is paramount, because you can't be going fast right out the gate, because you could have a 3-and-out and spend 45 seconds. Casey Crosby, who talked today, made the comparisons to Missouri. That happened to them a lot during the first half of last year. Of course, in the second half of the year, they played a bunch of cupcakes and ran up all their offensive stats the way that they did. But I'm saying you don't want to get yourself into that particular scenario where you're trying to run fast-paced and you can't get first downs.
Well, the key to this one is I wanted to see the offensive staff and whether some of the things you say he brought from Mississippi. I think the one thing that Mississippi did that really scared Alabama is it seemed to be the one team that would dare Alabama to cover them one-on-one, and they throw deep often. against Alabama.
Very big
that
emphasis. There was a very big emphasis on that today when we talked to them. They love the deep ball.
All right, we'll come back, update the PGA first round, take your phone calls too. Jump on board, 800-956-7266. Be right back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Currently in suburban St. Louis, PGA Championship going on at Belle Reve. Ricky Fowler is your, at least at the moment, 18-hole leader. He is 65 on the card today, 5 under par for the tournament. Trailing him, a quartet of Brandon Stone, Gary Woodland, Zach Johnson, multi-time major champion, and none other than our own Dustin Johnson, who is 4 under for the day, 2 holes left to play, still has a chance to possibly catch catch Fowler rather at the top. Kevin Kisner sitting 2 strokes back at 3 under par. He's still in striking distance, as is former Clemson golfer Cal Stanley at -2. Tiger shot even par 70 today after starting out 3 over through the first 2 holes. Jordan Spieth is at +1. Scott Brown +2. Phil, lefty, went 3 over today. Billy Haas also 3 over through 11 holes. Russell Henley 4 over for the day as well. Corn, it's prime scoring conditions right now in St. Louis. The greens have been softened by the rain from earlier this week. They have not gotten a lot of it in St. Louis. They've had to overwater, and it's created some dart throwing out there on the course.
Well, listening to the golfers earlier today, and Ricky Fowler, one who went out early and set the pace 5 under 65, as you mentioned, he was not sure that would hold up. He thought others might be able to pass him, and that might still happen. Dustin Johnson's in position if he finishes well to do that. Maybe Gary Woodland, a couple of others, because the conditions are prime for good scoring out there. Tiger's round was really interesting. He got off to a horrible start, made the turn at 2 over, and then got it together on the backside to get back to even. So I'm sure to him it kind of feels like a run that's 2 or 3 under par, even though it's even. He's going to be very much in the mix going into round number 2. This season for him, over the weekends, especially on Saturday until the British Open, he had been among the best on tour in scoring on Saturday and making a move. And then the British Open happened, and he fell back. So maybe this is going to be the weekend where he puts 4 together. Coming down the stretch on Sunday, he'll be in the hunt. This is the 100th PGA Championship, and it's the last to be the last. It's the last year for this event to be the last of the Grand Slams, because they're moving it up in the calendar beginning next year, which will be be kind of interesting to see how that works. They are going to put this right behind the Masters in May, giving you a major in April, May, June, and July, and we'll see how it feels to the golf fans out there, who I know it no other way. As long as I've been following golf, the PGA Championship has always been the last, and also the least interesting of the 4 majors. But it's a major nonetheless. And our own George Bryan III once played in the PGA Championship up in Chicago. He qualified many years ago. So it's an interesting tournament because you've got the touring pros and you've got the PGA professionals who can qualify to get into the field. So it makes for an interesting mix. Yeah,
it's funny. They're also going to, like you said, they're going to move the players also to May as well, and or at least kind of have that basically being jockeying for that particular situation, and obviously have the Open Championship be last. And I believe the PGA next year is at Bethpage Black, so that might create an interesting weather situation for them up there. But more about this course. To kind of steal the thunder from what George will probably tell us tomorrow, this is a course that is not long. There's only 2 par 5s, but it's craftily laid out, and the fact that it does present some of the penal outside areas outside of the fairway that you would see from a course that is of major caliber. And like you and I were talking about earlier today, Corn, it is a course that's steeped in history. So from that perspective, this is not necessarily one that's a regular stop on the PGA Tour anymore. They used to have a World Golf Championship event there. It is still a kind of a private members course that is still very prominent there and does get a lot of attention. But I think you are going to see more aggressive play as the weekend comes and as possibly conditions continue to hold up and be favorable for good scores.
Let me put out a weather alert for those of you listening to us in the upstate who might have been thinking about coming out to watch Furman practice tonight at Paladin Stadium. Nothing official yet from Hunter Reed, the fabulous sports information director at Furman, but there's another storm brewing overhead. It's about to cut loose again. I mean, I came through torrential rain from Simpsonville into the Greenville area and over here near Travelers Rest, where Furman is not conveniently located.
You didn't stop in Simpsonville at our favorite haunt, did you, or no?
Did not. But who knows? We might check it out on the way back. We shall see how that goes.
Should have known that was in the cards. Should have known.
They may have to go inside the Timmons Arena to get their workout in this evening. We'll wait and see. But we will have our coach and we will have our players up here with us a little bit after 7 o'clock. That's for sure. Phone number 800-956-7266. Your thoughts on the football camps thus far. We've got NFL preseason action all across the league tonight, including the Panthers up in Buffalo, where, two franchises that are kind of mirror images of one another in that Buffalo's got a lot of players connected to the Panthers organization, and also, of course, administrators and coaches connected to the Panthers organization. So that'll be kind of fun. Kelvin Benjamin getting a chance to face off against the team that he just recently criticized heavily publicly. And we'll see how they react to one another with all of that. But, it is preseason. I'm never one. All I care about with my team in the NFL with preseason football is just don't get anybody hurt. Just don't lose a key contributor in a meaningless game. The rest of it, win or lose, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's odd, Corn. Interesting kind of hearing from Ron Rivera about what he wants to do with his game plan. He is going to play Cam Newton in this game, which I found a tad surprising. He says he's going to get him about 9 to 10 live reps. If he gets a good series out of him, he'll go ahead and pull the plug and go to Garrett Gilbert. You probably won't see much more of Benjamin either because of the fact that they want to protect an asset. And it's interesting. You talk about the fact that there are mirror images on this between these two teams personnel-wise, at least from the working personnel. But from the standpoint of where these two franchises are, they couldn't be more opposite. The Bills are in a hard rebuild with a brand new quarterback, a rookie quarterback in Josh Allen, and Carolina right now. I'm not trying to sit here and say that their window is closing, but Pro, I would say that they need to get themselves, I think, repositioned back to where they can keep that door from possibly closing and where it's still very, very much almost it's barely ajar at this point.
Well, the defensive players are getting long in the tooth. There's no doubt about it. And that was really the driving force for the Panthers. They just stuff you with defense. They had a strong running game, and then they had the wild card in Cam Newton. One of the personal battles you may see, not just starting the whole preseason, is the Panthers were without a deep threat, a guy that could stretch the field. Damiere Byrd looked like he would become that guy. Then he got injured. And then the Panthers almost showed you that they don't trust whether he can stay healthy in drafting a DJ Moore out of Maryland. So you may see a very sort of concentrated Damiere Byrd if he gets on the field tonight to show he can still do some things to be a member of this team, albeit they have the number one draft choice in DJ Moore, who everybody has been gushing about early in camp.
All right, 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Reminder, if you lose us over the airwaves anytime, we have our Periscope stream on Twitter, our Twitter location at SportsTalkSC. Watch us and listen to us there. Of course, we have the YouTube stream as well available to you. A lot of folks still like to go to that. Our radio stations streaming via the TuneIn app and the radio.com app, which is a recent development in radio streaming. Our Columbia affiliate, the best station in Columbia, The Point Radio, with their live stream of sports talk and their other programming on their website, thepointradio.com. So all kinds of ways to reach us here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266. Your thoughts about the Panthers and the NFL exhibition season getting underway and the camps around the state, what you're hearing, what you're liking, what you're not liking about your favorite team around the state of South Carolina. We're on the Palmetto Pigskin Tour tonight. It's raining at Furman, but we're dry inside the beautiful press box here at Paladin Stadium. We'll be back in just a moment.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, the weekly Mike Morgan Report. Morgan on the Move, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Their mortgage team more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process. Visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage, whether you're buying or refinancing, to apply for a mortgage today. And by BP Skinner Clothiers. People nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner. Visit their great showroom in the Vista. No matter where you are, Brett will come to you for the best suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and more available to you. bpskinnerclothiers.com.
Good to have Mike Morgan with us back once again on Sports Talk. Morgan on the Move. Okay, Mikey, Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com, apparently a very smart guy in some corners, maybe more for basketball than football, but he projects the college football playoff to be Clemson and Ohio State 2 and 3 in the Orange Bowl, and Alabama, Oklahoma 1 and 4 in the Cotton Bowl. Do you agree? Disagree?
I think the only possible X factor there, thank you, is if you believe Washington can actually beat Auburn in week 1, and you can believe that they win the Pac-12, certainly they'd have a case anyway, but I think really we've gotten to the point where it's almost boringly predictable, right? Seems like we're picking the same teams every year. You know, maybe we have one, and then we have the same powerhouses, and you kind of get the feeling that that's not changing anytime soon. I know these things are cyclical, but I don't see massive movement here in the next 5 years with the same 5 to 10 programs we're talking about. So, in my opinion, that prediction is chalk, but I certainly wouldn't criticize it because chalk has been winning out.
Well, you look at the recent odds from Bovada, recent as of today. Alabama now listed 7-4 to win the championship. Clemson now number 2 on their list, 11-2. Ohio State's 8-1. Georgia's 9-1. You mentioned Washington, 15-1. They like Michigan at 18-1. Oklahoma at 26-1. Auburn and Wisconsin at 28-1. Then you can go down to Penn State, Texas, and South Carolina is now listed at 200-1 to win the national championship. So who would you put your money on from a long shot standpoint if you want to, not that you would do anything like this, though really now it's going to be legal in most states, so you'll no longer be breaking the laws you're used to doing. But if you want to put a $100 bill on a long shot, who would you place it on?
What are the odds on Penn State?
Just saw them. They are 35-1.
Okay, put a hundy down on Penn State, and I'll take my chances. Particularly if the Urban Meyer situation either A, results in a firing, or B, results in such a distraction that Ohio State trips up. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Penn State has Ohio State at home in Happy Valley. I think most of their difficult games are at home. They've got an established quarterback in McSorley. They've got weapons. I realize Saquon Barkley has moved on, but they certainly have skilled players that can do some damage. And I like what James Franklin has going on over there. So give me Penn State.
I'm not going to be a popular person in the Sunshine State by the end of this football season because it seems like whenever we have Mike on, I use it as an opportunity to bash Florida. But I found it curious, Mike, that Dan Mullen said shortly after the beginning of camp that he doesn't seem like he has a quarterback. I want to know how shocked you are by this revelation.
Not at all, because I've seen Felipe Franks play.
Exactly.
And there's nothing there other than the fact that he looks real good going off the bus. I mean, if you just look at him in his uniform, he's tall, he's rangy. He's one of those guys, if it was an Elite 11 camp, he'd probably throw it 75 yards. That's great. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he can read a defense or read an offense, run a playbook, have much poise. He just looks completely lost. So Dan Mullen might be the panacea to that, but I don't know if that's going to turn on right away.
That's like me getting on the golf course. I look good until I actually take a swing.
Exactly.
I know everybody likes to talk about tangible things, but I'll go back to what I said about Florida. It's the Tim Tebow curse. They have not had a quarterback since Tim Tebow. And that kind of freaks me out at a school like Florida, that they cannot keep or develop a quarterback.
It is amazing. They've gone 10 years. Jeff Driscoll was supposed to be that guy. You can ask Will Muschamp how that worked out and how that affected that period of time. And then, of course, you've got a guy who's a Heisman Trophy candidate this year at West Virginia, and Will Grier, who was the one guy who did show promise. And, of course, he got kicked out due to some type of PED failed test. Not sure exactly what that turned out to be. Doesn't look like a great body, to be honest with you. This looks like a regular quarterback.
He needs a refund if it's PED.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, heck, I think some of us could go to a GNC and do a better job than that. I just that was the guy. I mean, Will Greer was the one guy who actually looked like an SEC caliber quarterback, and of course he got booted out. And other than that, it just hasn't panned out for whatever reason. Bill, you know from following recruiting, it's not as if they're not getting highly touted guys, but for whatever reason, they've all turned out to be disappointments.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's an amazing thing. One of the amazing points in college football is the ongoing struggles there with the quarterback situation. But think about this, too. When Spurrier was there and all his greatness, some of, if not all, of the quarterbacks that played for him were kind of under the radar guys that he molded in his offense to become great college quarterbacks.
Well, the biggest one was Shane Matthews, who I think was fifth string when he got the job, and he turned out to be an all-SEC guy. Werfel, I think, was an option quarterback in high school. Grossman was a stud coming out of Indiana. Brock Berlin never panned out, transferred to Miami. But, it's not just Florida. I mean, why doesn't Tennessee have better options at quarterback over the last few years? You would think a program like that would never have to apologize for quarterback play. LSU has been a disaster at quarterback. I think some of that has to do with play calling, but a lot of it has to do with guys that, again, look really good and are really athletic until you get them out in the field and they can't complete a pass on third down. So there's been a few marquee programs in the SEC alone that have struggled to find consistent quarterback play.
Visiting with Mike Morgan on the Move. While we're talking quarterbacks, new Heisman odds are out from Bovada, and they list Bryce Love and Tua Tagovailoa, the leaders right now in the clubhouse, at 7-1. And down the list, Trevor Lawrence listed at 15-1 to win the Heisman before he takes his first snap in a college football game, which will probably come against the Furman defense we're going to be talking about here in a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think Trevor Lawrence has a chance to be a stud, but there's no way he's winning the Heisman Trophy. First of all, to be a defensive player and win it, it's damn near impossible. And secondly, you've got to be like the guy that stands out above everybody else on that unit. I mean, is he going to stand out?
Now we're talking Trevor now. We're talking the freshman QB, not the defensive lineman.
I'm sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad. Well, still, a long shot. A long shot. I would think. I just think that the Heisman Trophy has changed. The one reason that makes sense is because you're going to be on a team that's going to win a lot of games, and we all know Heisman Trophy winners don't come from 8-4 teams anymore. It's just not happening. A 7-5, 8-4 team. You could be the best player in college football. You're not winning that award. But I think you also have to put up ridiculous stats, and you have to be by far and away the key of that unit and its success. And so, from that standpoint, I understand Love. I understand Tua. I mean, basically, there's going to be an Alabama candidate every year, right? A couple of running backs have walked away with it when I don't think necessarily they should have. I don't think Derrick Henry, quite frankly, wouldn't have been my vote, but that's who got it. But that's where we are, unless you're a Lakeem Jackson at Louisville. I can't remember what they finished. What were they, 9-3, somewhere in that range? Yeah. But he just put up video game numbers, was the most electric player in college football, took the nation by storm for the first 8 weeks, and then people ignored the fact that he became very pedestrian after that, and Deshaun Watson should have won the award.
All right, last one for you, Mike, real quick. Who do you think has the best college career? Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama, or rising freshman Justin Fields over at Georgia?
Wow. That's a damn good question. I don't think Tua is going to be allowed to put up the numbers that those other guys will in the framework of a Nick Saban coach team. So if you base it on championships, he might. If you base it on pure numbers and wins, I mean, I want to see what Fields does. You're not going to convince me Fields is going to take the job from Jake Fromm this year. I just don't see it. But I would probably take one of those two guys over Tua, because I just think even if they open it up somewhat, Tua's not throwing for 4,000 yards.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Well, there is room now, or at least there's company at the top for Ricky Fowler, as he has now a co-leader right now at the PGA Championship at Belle Reve. Gary Woodland has moved into a tie for first at 5 under par with 2 holes to play, with Ricky Fowler at 5 under for the tournament. Zach Johnson at -4. He still has 4 holes to play. Brandon Stone is in the clubhouse at -4. Dustin Johnson finished the day at -3, dropped a couple of strokes, or dropped 1 stroke on his final 2 holes. He shot a 3 under 67. Kevin Kisner still on the course at 3 under. He is through 16 holes, 2 to play.
All righty. There is a video clip. The Sporting News has put it out from Buffalo. It's been viewed over 235,000 times of a pregame chat between Cam Newton and Kelvin Benjamin, and it did not appear to be a very friendly one at that. Kind of maybe a little bit in your face. Benjamin trying to walk away from Newton. I don't have the sound turned up, so I don't know if you can hear it, but they're kind of chatting pretty dramatically with one another on the field during the pregame.
You did realize that Kelvin did come out in that article on The Athletic basically saying that that there were some comments about how Cam held him back and the organization held him back from having any kind of success. So I would like to think that Cam Newton would be balking at some of those things. And Benjamin, pardon the reference, he kind of looks like a little bit of a wuss in my mind.
Well, you look at the video and you see him talking, and he's trying to walk away from Cam. And at the very end, Cam kind of gave that little hand gesture, that little wave, like, get out of my face, get away, whatever the case may be. Too bad Cam doesn't play defense. He'd have a chance to carry the conversation a little more deeper on the field. Want to mention a lot of high school football jamborees now cropping up around the state beginning tonight. Sertoma down in the Charleston area, always big. Other schools having jamborees tonight, tomorrow night, and Saturday. So get out and enjoy. 1 week from tonight, we'll have regular season high school football, a few games, and then the bulk of the week 0 games to be played on Friday night. And a reminder, here on South Carolina Radio Network. Again, this year, we'll have our fabulous high school football scoreboard updates for you throughout the night on Friday nights at 10, 10:30, and 11 o'clock. So make sure you check out your favorite Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network station to catch those beginning next Friday night. Hard to believe another season is upon us. And I also wanted to mention that, how about this story from Wake Forest just coming out? A Wake Forest assistant basketball coach, Jamil Jones, has been charged with assault in the Queens section of New York for attacking a Florida tourist who later died in the hospital. He allegedly slugged a Boca Raton resident in the head early Sunday morning after this resident, this guy from Florida, was apparently drunk and banging on cars in Long Island City. And this apparently got a little bit out of hand, and now he is charged in a very serious case here.
Nothing good happens after dark in Long Island City, Corn. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, it does not sound like it. So this is something that's going to affect the program there at Wake Forest. All right, so today we had a chance to get the one preseason visit with Dan Werner.
We did, and it's interesting to kind of hear from the quarterback guru as he expounds upon his footprint, or at least his blueprint that he has for this Gamecock offense.
I look at it, I mean, our offensive line is solid. You know, guys coming back from last year along with the newer guys. I look at the quarterbacks, obviously, I'm happy with. We've got big-time receivers. The running backs are good. The tight ends, I mean, I see a lot of weapons. And our job now as coaches is to figure out how to get those guys the ball. And I think with this scheme, we're going to be able to do that.
What percentage would you say, and we talked about this with BMAC earlier, but what percentage would you say was total rebuild or doing things that you had existing done better?
I don't know what the percentage is, but I mean, 50-50 maybe. I don't know. But a lot of the stuff is things that I've done in my past, things that BMAC wanted to do, but, you know, didn't last year. But there was a lot of stuff carry over from last year, too, because there was a lot of good plays that we had in. And what we sort of did is went through and talked about what the players like, what we liked from last year, keep that, and then what do we know that we need to add to it.
What has it been like working with BMAC, and what do you think makes him a good game coach?
It's been awesome. That was one of the things when I came here. You know, I wanted to make sure that I got with him, made sure we were a good fit, and it's been, like I said, it's been really good. And the thing is with him, he's not only smart, but he's very demanding, and the players respect him. So you put all that together and you're a good football coach.
How important are deep balls in this offense, and have you seen Jake kind of progress with that and what he's been able to do?
It's very important because we want to stretch the defense. We want to make sure that they understand they have to cover the whole field. And so, I mean, that's going to be a huge part of our offense. With the guys that we have, I tell Jake, look, if you just get it out there, they're probably going to make a play for you. And I think he's bought into that. And he's, you know, I don't know how it went last year, but I feel really good about it right now.
What other quarterback that you've worked with in the past does Jake remind you of most?
I don't know. I don't really like to compare guys. I mean, each guy is his own guy, and I just know this. There are no negatives. I mean, he comes to work every day wanting to be a leader, wanting to work hard, just begging for information. You know, he's always the first one there, the last one to leave. Now he's just got to carry it over the field.
Like, how's the carry on looked thus far now that you're in live action?
You know, he's still young, and as Jay is, and they're still learning things and make young guy mistakes every now and then. But the thing I like is when they make a mistake, they bounce right back and learn from it and move on. I think he feels good about himself, and he's throwing the ball well and doing a good job. It's not like he's tucking the ball and running every time. Hard for me to say how he feels, but I definitely see a progression. The footwork part of it obviously is big, but I mean I can just see every day he's getting better and better, and you know we'll see where he goes. We're going in running our offense, and we know that the older guys obviously do this type of stuff that we're going to do. If it were to get to where there were issues or situations where we need the younger guys, maybe then obviously you would start tweaking it. You got to do what's best for your team, you know. And what the great thing about the scheme is, I feel like whether you have an athletic guy, a pro style guy, we've got in our package plays that they can all run.
So if the carry on were put into one of those packages, there wouldn't be too much adjustment of what you guys want to run with them under center.
Right.
That is Dan Werner, the quarterback coach for South Carolina. And Corn, it seems like he knows where he's going. Time will tell, and obviously the output on the field will tell.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this guy's a veteran. Look at his track record. Wherever he's been, he's produced tremendous quarterback play and helped elevate an offense. So I think South Carolina fans should be very comfortable with the fact that they've got a guy very capable of developing the quarterbacks and lending a big hand to what they're trying to do on the offensive side. Very quickly, let's hit Mark in Aiken up before the top of the hour. We'll get to recruiting and a whole bunch more here on Sports Talk. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going? Listen, quick football question for you. Looking at their schedules and the first game, that Washington versus Auburn game in Atlanta, who does that hurt more in the long run with a loss, Washington or Auburn? And thanks a lot for the question. Take care.
I would say Washington because of the fact that they don't have another opportunity to get what I would call a signature win on their schedule. I don't know about you, Corn.
I don't disagree. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, when you're Auburn, you're playing a Power 5, highly ranked non-conference team. Should you lose that game, man, if you win it, that is certainly a big leg up. But if you lose it, you still have a chance to play Alabama. You still have a chance to play Georgia and others. So you can recoup that loss with those with that schedule. I think who else does Washington have?
Washington is at Utah, at UCLA, at Oregon, at Cal. They get Stanford at home, Colorado at home, Arizona State, BYU, and they play the in-state rivalry game on the road. Again, I don't see statement wins on that schedule.
No. And I also harken back to when a Boise State team came in, coached by Chris Peterson, just waltzed into the Georgia Dome. And Georgia thought they were going to have a cakewalk, and Georgia walked out with their brand new colorful uniforms with their tails between their legs. So Chris Peterson is dangerous. Auburn, watch out.
All right, top of the hour. It's pouring down rain here in Greenville, but we're good inside. The Paladins are coming up next.
2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a wet Thursday evening in the upstate. We are on the Palmetto Pigskin Tour at Paladin Stadium at Furman University, visiting with the Paladins, where the rain has forced the team inside, but we're doing a favor for 2 of the players, getting them away from practice. So maybe they want to practice. Who knows? Football players love to practice and love to play. We have with us senior nose guard Jalen Reed out of Marietta, Georgia, Hillgrove High School, and also with us is redshirt sophomore running back Darius Moorhead from beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. I know it well. Good to have you 2 guys with us. And first of all, Jalen, it's good to be talking about Furman in terms of potential Southern Conference championship, playoffs, and things of that nature. How does it feel to be part of resurrecting this program?
It's a great feeling, coming off of those losing seasons that we had a little bit in the past, with Coach Hendricks and that staff coming in. You started off last year a little slow, and then, it started to pick up a lot. And, just gaining that momentum and knowing that, we have what it takes to be at the top of the conference. And I think that's what we're going to build off this year. And I think we're going to go for it all for sure.
What did Coach Hendricks bring in with his staff that sort of turned this thing in a positive direction?
I'll say confidence and just that willpower to, assert your dominance on other teams. I think he reminded us of what Furman football is about, and that's just his character in general. Is he's came from that winning culture, and he brought it back here, and we bought in, and as you see, we started rolling, early on in the season, and the culture just caught on here.
Absolutely. Jalen, Darius. Under Coach Fowler, you guys were competitive. Yes, offensively. You were challenged. You struggled offensively to get it going, and then comes the new staff, and boy, the offense really changes and really picked things up last year. What happened on the offensive side with their new schemes and everything that benefited you guys?
Well, starting out last year, we had some identity challenges. With the offense, we didn't know which way we wanted to go with the offense, but it benefited us because it added more speed to our offense. We have a lot of speed guys on the offense, and we have our power back, so it all put us on the field at one time, which also helps out a lot. Plus, you have your receiver, and so when you have that 3 package deal like that, plus a running quarterback, you can also be a threat.
Yeah. How about the element of misdirection and option that Coach Hendricks was part of at Air Force? We all know the kind of offense they used to run there, and he's installed that here, and obviously it fit the personnel.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Obviously, it was new for us. Like I said, we had some identity challenges, but we came through in the end.
Yeah. So what have you worked on so far in camp on the offensive side? Is it just refining what you've been doing, or have they added more to the package?
Just refining what we've been doing. Just making sure that we're having good reads, making sure that we're actually being aggressive, trying to get 2 or more yards as running backs, linemen just pushing harder. So, like I said, just refining what we have already.
Visiting with the Furman Paladins, Jalen Reed and Darius Moorhead with us here at Paladin Stadium on the Palmetto Pigskin Tour tonight. Jalen, you were a co-captain last year, so obviously you are a leader of this football team. What responsibilities do you take on from that standpoint, and how did you help? You mentioned kind of the slow start, and you guys lost a tough opener, and you go to NC State and you play them tough for a little over a half. And then you guys started winning, and it started to snowball on through the season. As your role as a captain, how did you kind of help hold this team together in the locker room?
It comes down to just guys believing in themselves and believing in the guy next to them. And I think that, once it gets started, it's kind of like a wildfire. Once that culture catches on, there's not much, honestly, from my end that has to be done. Is when everybody believes in the process and believes in what we're doing, it just keeps rolling. The times it'll get down and slow down, you gotta reach out and pick guys up, let them know what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. Just reminding guys every day, because days get hard and hard throughout the season. You got to keep guys going and keep them focused on the goal.
Darius, did you ever feel that way early on in the season? Like, when's this thing going to turn? When are we going to get a break and get this thing moving forward?
Well, I knew it was going to turn around because after those 3 games, you never had anybody in the locker room down about anything. You could still tell in the locker room we still had confidence. Just like Jalen said, Coach Hendricks brought confidence. And so in the locker room, we had a guy start off streak. So streak every week, we were just in the locker room saying streak after every game, streak. And that's what we did, rode on the streak.
Last year, you guys were 4th in the league and 13th nationally in running the football, 226 yards per game. Can you do better this year?
Yes, we can always do better.
Yeah. Are you going to be a run-heavy offense once again?
Well, you're going to see what you saw last year. I mean, we're going to try to pound the ball, but we're going to also try to throw the ball. So beat you in every way, try to expand the field, make you cover every part of the field. So that's what we're going to do.
So you go down the road to open up the season. And, listen, most of these matchups between FCS and FBS teams you look at, you go, boy, that's going to be a beatdown. Because let's face it, you're outmanned. They've got more scholarships. They've got very talented athletes, depending on who you're playing. But Furman has a history, as I'm sure you guys well know. And I'm sure you went in NC State last year thinking you're going to win, and you gave them a battle. But this is Clemson in week 1 over there, number 2 team in the country, thinking about national championship again. So, Jalen?
Yes, sir.
What can you do?
We're going to come at them with everything we got. People always build up the hype around these FBS schools and playing FCS schools, but we're all football players. We all lift the same weights. We all bleed the same blood. So it just comes down to who's gonna do their job the best at the end of the day.
Have you started, or maybe on your own, maybe not with the coaches because they're focusing now on just getting you guys ready? But have you, as a player, started looking ahead, looking at some Clemson video and getting a feel for it?
Yes, sir, for sure. I've been watching some Clemson film, just getting familiar with their offensive line and kind of what they do. And their strengths and weaknesses for sure.
Yeah. What do you think of their offensive line?
I mean, their offensive line, I mean, I didn't think there's anything, that stood out to me as anything, spectacular. I mean, as far as the FBS offensive line, I think they're kind of in the mix there.
Yeah. You want to get a good hit on Kelly Bryant?
Oh, yeah.
How about the freshman if he's standing back there posing? He's got the Heisman pose back there. You want to lower the boom?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to bring everything. Oh, yeah. I can't wait for that for sure.
Darius, facing that defense with a defensive front where, everybody says those are 4 NFL guys starting up front. Can you get through them? Can you dice them up?
Oh, yes, we can always get through them. Like I said, we're going to stick to our culture, stick to our game plan. We got some NFL guys, too. We got some running backs. We got some linemen. We got some receivers. We got some quarterbacks. So, like Jalen was saying, we all practice. We all practice on the same field, 100-yard field, 53 yards wide. Hey.
No fear.
No fear.
No, sir.
What are your hopes, Darius, for this season with this team? Where do you think you guys can go? How far can you guys go?
I think we can get the SoCon championship and we can get a better spot in the playoffs. That's what I think. Coming off of last year, seeing the team that we have now, keep on working, keep on progressing. That's what I believe we could do.
Jalen, making the playoffs last year, winning a playoff game, getting that kind of experience, what does that mean to the team and how does that help you with this year?
Definitely just that showed us what we can do as a team. I think, that confidence at the end of that last season, even though it didn't end how we wanted it to, I think it's a good ending point, starting point for this season, just knowing what we're capable of and just building off of that.
Got to ask both of you. Furman has this reputation of being really tough academically. Is it hard?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard.
Could I make it at Furman? Do you think?
You got to apply yourself.
I'm just a common guy with a common brain.
If you apply yourself,
common brain get through Furman?
Yes, if you apply yourself,
time management.
Every time I walk on this campus, I get the chills because I just feel like everybody here is smarter than me, except for Hunter Reed.
Me too.
Corn, I can
I hear
answer
some
for
chirping in the background, huh?
I can answer for them. You couldn't make it at Furman. Answering for them.
Furman would not even look at my application coming out of high school. They went right into their shredder. I can promise you that. Great seeing you guys. Best of luck.
Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Going to be talking a lot about you guys over the next couple of weeks going into the Clemson game.
Yes, sir.
You're going to be right in the bullseye.
Oh, yeah.
See what happens.
Can't wait for it.
Thank you very much, Jalen Reed and Darius Moorhead from here at Furman. We thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck in practice. And I got to mention, these guys are in full pads. They're already dressed and ready to go. It might be the first time that we've had full padded players with us on the tour. We thank you for coming up.
So thank you.
Good luck to you. Stay healthy.
Yes, sir.
And we'll see you down the road. And when we come back from the break, we're going to have the head coach, Clay Hendricks, with us here on Sports Talk. He's ready to get to work tonight, too. They've had to go inside because of the weather. and he's gracious enough to take some time out to come up with us and join us here in just a moment. We'll be back from Furman here on the Palmetto Pigskin Tour.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk on a Thursday night up in Greenville at Paladin Stadium. We continue here on the Palmetto Pigskin Tour, joined now by Furman coach Clay Hendricks. Great to see you once again. You guys are having to go inside tonight.
Yeah, we could handle the rain, but the lightning, we've got a lot of lightning this week, and we've been having to go at night because of we're still in school here. Most of them finished exams today, so hopefully now we can get a little more of a routine.
Very good. How would you describe camp at this point?
Camp's been good. A lot of kids back. They've played a lot of football. we're still a really young football team, so we got some young kids that played a lot, but, just trying to get a little better each day.
Mm-hmm.
But I like our kids. I think our kids are as good a shape as any group I've ever been a part of. And, Andre Bernardi's the credit for that. We had him here in July, which we haven't always had a lot of years. And so, we're a place to get off to a good start.
Seems to be a confident bunch from talking to your players and maybe on the outside as well. I mean, I feel good about the kind of season you guys can have based on what you did last year.
Well, our kids are excited to go play. They had a little success, got a little confidence. I want us to be a confident team. So I think they do, and I think they realize the things we have to do to be successful, especially here. So I think they're excited. They've worked extreme. They've done everything we've asked them to do. You try to win those periods of the off season, and I don't know if we could have done much better there. But at some point you got to go play football.
Of course, you've been around winning your entire career as a player, as an assistant coach, and now you come in your first year as a head coach and you get off to a great start. But how do you build on success? How do you add to it? How do you throw another winning postseason kind of season on top of a prior one?
Well, I think it's creating your culture, and I think for us, it's doing the things that get us to that point. It's just doing there's no secret formula. It's working. For us, it's recruiting great kids who can be successful in school here and be good players, and just continue to develop players and keeping them here, and keep developing as coaches. And we're pretty confident in our schemes. We're always trying to get a little better as a coach, and but it's just doing the daily routine.
Yeah. Do you at all worry? I mean, you came in last year, got off to not a slow start because you were in games competitively, but the record didn't show it. Then you got on the hot streak and you finished up great and you made the playoffs in your first year. I mean, sometimes it's not a good thing to be too good too soon when you start a new program. You want to start off maybe slowly and build up, because if you stumble like a year or two, then people say, well, the first year was just sort of a mirage or whatever.
Yeah.
You wonder about being too good too fast?
No, I really don't, because we aren't. Just kind of don't worry about stuff that matters and stuff you have no control over. We don't have any control over, but how we come to work every day and how we go practice. And, somebody asked me about the polls. I said, what, our goal here is we want to be a top 10 team every single year coming into the year. The division we play in is unique because of the playoff system, and it's pretty simple. We want to win a conference championship, and if you do that, you guarantee spot playoffs. We want to get in the playoffs, and we want to have a chance to compete for a national championship. And I learned over the years, if you can get in, you got a chance. And it's kind of it's like any playoff system. Sometimes you don't always have to be the best team. You just got to play the best, and just trying to keep improving. And, you got to be a little lucky. You got to do the things that get you there and taking care of the ball and all those things. And you got to be a little lucky and stay healthy.
Last year you were, of course, outstanding running the ball, and you were pretty good at stopping the run. Is that the secret to your success throughout your assistant coaching and now head coaching career?
Well, that's part of my DNA. We want to be good in those areas, and I think we were pretty good. Some things that stood out to us. We were pretty good at taking care of the ball. We've got to be a lot better at creating some turnovers. We were excellent on third down, and we were almost 50% for the year. I think we were 49%, and it's because we could run the ball. We didn't have a lot of third and longs. I think we allowed fewer sacks in the country. I think we allowed maybe top 2 or 3 and the fewest negative plays allowed, so it's not doing things to be, we're the least penalized team in all of college football at any level. And I think we had 3 penalties a game. So it's not beating ourselves, and then yet find a way to, offensively, we ran it. And I like to say we're balanced, we probably run it quite a bit more, but, I think we threw it for right at 200 yards a game, and we rushed it for about 230, 225. So I'd probably take those numbers a lot of years. We just, yards per carry, we got to get up and make a few more explosive plays in the run game. We made a lot of big plays in the pass game.
Furman head coach Clay Hendricks joining us here as our Palmetto Pigskin Preview Tour continues. Okay, Coach, I'm going to be the bad guy. Week 1, Clemson is calling. How do you separate that test for your ball club, adjacent, of course, to the stuff that you guys want to accomplish in your FCS season?
I don't think you really do. Somebody asked me the other day about it. And you know what? We did some of our off-season prep just like we always do, and we did some with Clemson. And we did it, and since that time, I've watched very little Clemson. I think I mentioned Clemson one time and I don't really remember what it was even about. I think it was just kind of in passing there the first game. And, I think right now we just worry about ourselves for these next few weeks. And I don't know, 10 days out, we've got a preliminary game plan together as a staff, but we won't do anything with our players probably just for them until about 10 days out. And you just got to prepare like you do anybody else. I mean, I think your plans you got to critique your plan a little bit just based on what you think you're capable of doing. But I've played and coached in a lot of those games. I'm not sure I've played and coached against a team quite like that one, just talent wise. And they've had an awful lot of success. They're a really confident group, and we're a little bit unique in how we do some things, especially offensively. But they play in a league where they see some of that. So they're not like you're catching a team totally unprepared, because Venables was at Oklahoma when I was at the academy, and we played them about, I don't know, 2010, 11, 12, somewhere right in there. I tell you this, that Clemson team's a lot better than that Oklahoma team we played. we had a chance to beat them that day, and I think we lost a 3-point game. I wish we were playing that Oklahoma.
I remember that game. I remember that
day.
game. Yeah.
Well, Coach, tell me this: when you look at your running stats, you want to be balanced. Of course, you love the quick strike. But I got to feel that when you're running the football and you're not getting penalties, you love that kind of time of possession, don't you?
I do. We don't really talk about time of possession very much. I think it naturally happens. We want to make first downs, and obviously stay on the field, keep our defense off the field. And I mean, we had to be, I don't know, maybe the run game probably is a little bit ahead of where I thought it would be a year ago. I do think I think up front, we've made some significant strides. We did lose a good player or two, but we got, a good core of those guys back. We had some backs that are pretty good players, and, certainly going to have a new quarterback. But I mean, that's us. We want to run the ball, we, as you like to say, you like to exert your will on some defense. You'd like to think we're a little team in third and fourth quarter because we can. But that kind of remains to be seen.
What's happening at quarterback here in camp?
Well, really, there's two guys. We got the two guys from last year, Harris Robertson, Jamar Lincoln. Harris will be a fifth-year senior, and then Jamar's a redshirt freshman. Two guys that are different in a lot of ways, but they have a lot of similar skills. Two really bright kids. They both can run our offense. I think, depending on who was playing, you may tweak your plan a little bit. And then probably we have two young guys that are here, just got here, just practiced this week for the first time, who we're really excited about. So it's kind of the 2 and 2. We'll give the two young guys a chance. I'd be surprised if they can unseat one of those other guys.
Will you use a 2-quarterback system during the season?
I don't know. I'm not opposed to that. I think it'll work itself out. I really do. Harris played a fair amount last year. We actually got ahead a few more games than I thought we might, and he got in some games. I don't know how much he was in there when it was truly meaningful reps. Jamar's a unique guy. He's nephew of Mel Blount. He comes from a pretty good bloodline, probably one of the better athletes on our team. Runs really well, does a lot of good things, running and throwing. So it'll be an interesting little battle as it takes place.
We thank you for coming up and making time for us.
Hey, I appreciate you being here.
Best of luck. Look forward to talking to you during the season.
Sounds great.
Of course, we'll be following you very closely going into that opener and beyond. So best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clay Hendricks, coach of the Paladins. We'll be right back.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Well, our 18-hole leader was Ricky Fowler at the PGA Championship in St. Louis, but Gary Woodland, after a couple of very nice birdies on the back nine, shoots a 6-under 64 to be the 18-hole leader at Belle Reve. He's one stroke ahead of Ricky Fowler, two better than Brandon Stone, who sits in solo third at -4. Very big group at 3 under par, including Dustin Johnson and Kevin Kisner of local import. Zach Johnson is still on the course with 1 hole to play, also at -3. Buffalo leads the Panthers, by the way, Corn 7-0, and the touchdown came by the hands of Kelvin Benjamin. So he's getting the last laugh right now on the Panthers, although the Panthers are in the red zone.
Okay, always exciting preseason NFL action. Doesn't get much better than that. The Money Coach coming up in just a moment. Stay tuned for him. But very quickly, we welcome in our good friend Keith Alsep for an update on his podcast, the new podcast, Locked on the Gamecocks, about to drop here very soon, if it hasn't dropped already. Mr. Keith, what do you have for us this week?
Hey, Phil, great to be with you. We dropped one episode on Monday. A lot of information, recruiting, football camp, breaking down players and coaches from over the weekend. Got another episode that'll be dropping tomorrow. We'll be talking about why year 3 at South Carolina will be different from year 3 at Florida. We'll be breaking some information on Josh Belk and why he is not practicing and when that could change. Plenty of thoughts from Lance Thompson and Dan Warner and the players that have been interviewed. Who are the candidates to fill in those interior D-line spots for depth, and also breaking down the safety position. And then, Phil, we talked a good bit about Jermaine Cousinard and his admissions issue and why South Carolina should not attempt to be Harvard of the South. And we'll also be focusing, looking at Dawn Staley and Gillette Law's recruiting focus for the 2019 class and some of their major targets, all on the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, available on the Stitcher app, SoundCloud, Google Play, and most importantly, on iTunes. So we'd encourage everybody. We've been having record-breaking numbers for every episode. Gamecock fans are very optimistic about football season, and I think they have good reason to be optimistic.
I agree. That sounds like great stuff. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Phil. Locked on and locked in.
You got it, my man. Keith Alsep. Everybody's got to have a slogan. I happen to believe, my opinion is, any athlete, for that matter, any student, if you pass the pink tongue test, you should be admitted to the school of your choice. That means if you have a pink tongue, you should be allowed into school.
I think
that's all that's required.
I don't know if the NCAA is going to like that one.
Well, the heck with the NCAA. All they do is come up with new rules every time somebody complains about something, which takes us to the Money Coach, Fran Halloran. Good to have him with us again tonight. So the NCAA is going to allow agents to start getting involved with high school players, top high school players, the ones they deem to be the top 25. If you're number 26, sorry, that door is closed. What's this going to mean?
Well, y'all going to have to explain this to me tonight, guys, because frankly, I don't get it. I thought the commission to investigate college basketball was designed to bring college basketball back to its roots, which is student-athlete driven, student-athlete participation. These changes make me feel all the more that college basketball, and even now, high school in particular, if you're 18, AAU kind of player, big-time AAU player, big Nike camp player, big Adidas camp player, you're moving more towards being a pro. And that, to me, comes with great peril. I have always felt like the fox has been guarding the hen house in college athletics. I think the fox is inside the hen house now. And I don't know how this changes. So I need you guys to tell me why these changes make sense, because what it means is agents are now going to be able to talk to college kids and the occasional high school kid who makes it into that elite status as defined by, well, no one really seems to be able to tell us yet who's going to define who an elite prospect is. NCAA doesn't really want to do it. USA Basketball doesn't want to really do it. The NBA certainly doesn't want to do it, because then it looks like they ought to just do what we all know they should do and just drop the age to 18, and let's be done with all this nonsense. I think that would solve the problem.
Well,
gents, I don't get it.
It's very similar to the baseball model in the fact that baseball players can have what's basically designated as an advisor, which is a little bit different than the way basketball is wording it. The only thing that I don't like about it is that it doesn't seem like Mark Emmert really checked with the NBA or USA Basketball when he said that they were going to make these rules, because both of those guys came out and said, we didn't hear about any of this stuff.
Nope, that's exactly right. The NBA and USA Basketball are a bit dumbfounded. And to go on top of all of that, the NCAA readily admits we don't have all the answers just yet. We're not.
They
quite
rarely do.
Sure how
Spoiler alert.
Correct. I agree with you, Will. But this is not just putting the cart before the horse. Well, that's what it is. They put the cart before the horse. There is no rhyme or reason to why this makes sense. And I'm going to tell you right now, you mark my words, there will be a lawsuit. There will be a lawsuit because some kids' parents are going to be offended that their kid didn't make the elite prospect list. And some attorney out there will want to sue whatever entity is going to be responsible for that list. And we'll have even more litigiousness in sport than we already have right now. This doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm frankly very disappointed that the NCAA has, as I said, let the fox into the hen house.
Well,
they can't even fix. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say the two things that jumped out to me is I saw this as waving the white flag, period.
Mm-hmm.
And because it works, they asked Coach K, Roy Williams, Kansas, things going well for you guys, right? Any suggestions? Yeah, just to make it seem like it, just as we were going along. So it seems to me that they're both waving the white flag and catering to the halves.
I absolutely agree with you, Pro. I think this really is the commission saying it's already professional. We're just calling it college. Let's not get upset. Here's one of the things the commission said. We really don't want kids getting in trouble over fluff expenses. That was straight out of the commission's report. And they define fluff expenses as $400 or more being paid to an athlete for whatever reason. And what they're thinking here is agents are going to be able to wine and dine to a certain extent these young men, in most cases, who are going to be ultimately easily influenced by who spends the most money on them. They can't even define yet. The NCAA doesn't have a clue as to how they're going to define the allowable expense or cost basis for dealing with a student who is still in school. Not to mention
one thing,
what's going to happen with high school kids. Because unless the NCAA, now here's the thing I did read today. Unless the NCAA drops the age to 18, a lot of this is not going to apply to high school kids. Correct me if I'm wrong there, guys, but everything I've read says the NBA has to drop their age to 18.
Right, NBA Players Association, they've got to be on board with this thing. Yeah, one thing about the NCAA that we know, anytime there's a crisis that arises and enough people complain about it in the media, whatever the case may be, what do? They have a commission step forward to investigate it. Then they come out with more inane rules that don't fix the problem. It just adds to the problem. Yeah. As I see it, they continue to grow recruiting instead of trying to reduce recruiting, which is recruiting is the root of all evil in college sports, and they just will not address it. They just continue to build it, which amazes me. Money Coach Fran Halloran, real quick, throw the number out there.
888-779-2557. Let us help you. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you, sir. Be right back.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, currently 7-7 in Buffalo, Panthers and the Bills. The Panthers got a touchdown on that last drive when they were in the red zone. Christian McCaffrey gets it in from a couple of yards out. Cam Newton out of the game, 6 of 9, 84 yards, did run for 3 yards. The Bills did have an interception thrown by Nate Peterman. It's his only incomplete pass. We have not seen any Josh Allen yet. Of course, Panthers unable to really get anything done after that interception. They have now punted the football back to Buffalo. Early second quarter, 7-7 Carolina and the Bills.
Yeah, that would be Mr. Interception, Nate Peterman.
Everybody's favorite former Pittsburgh Panther quarterback. Why are they starting Peterman, by the way? I would just go to Josh Allen. You traded to get the big pick. I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing here?
Maybe they put him out there to fail, so they say, now we got to cut him.
All right, quickly, a couple of recruiting notes. Clemson recently offered 2020 defensive end Riley Mills. He's 6'5", 275. Defensive end, defensive tackle, he can play both, and he's getting a lot of big offers. Notre Dame, Alabama, Boston College, Duke, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Nebraska, Oklahoma, others. And on Clemson, he likes the fact that they are in the national championship picture every year. He likes their academics, and he knows Clemson's going to have to replenish the interior of the D-line next couple of classes with the players that they are losing. So Todd Bates is a friend of his high school coach, and that's how the relationship got underway. Got the offer from Clemson. He will visit at some point. Basketball, 2020 6-foot point guard Miles Tate of Dorman, floor general of that defending state championship team, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists per game last season. USC making a strong impression on him with an offer and a strong push. Talks to Frank Martin and the assistant coaches on a regular basis through text or phone calls or what have you. He and his teammate P.J. Hall visited West Virginia last Friday, then camped at Pitt over the weekend. Those two, along with Clemson, NC State, Virginia, are some other power programs he is hearing from. He also has offers from South Florida, Coastal, Wofford, College of Charleston, and Presbyterian. Plans to visit South Florida before the start of school, and he plans a return trip to USC for some football games. He considers himself wide open at this point. Recruiting, check it out online on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Use the hashtag ST Recruiting. All right, Clemson football today practice, but no media avail. We had plenty of media avail earlier in the week, and Austin Bryant, the veteran defensive end, one of those senior leaders on the defensive side, talked with the media. In particular, the media wanted his impressions of that much talked about freshman defensive end Xavier Thomas.
You know, he's learning slowly but surely, and to see the progress that he's made since he got here has been really, really special to me, to know that, you know, I helped that guy get to where he is right now and hopefully get him even further improving. So it's a great feeling for me.
They don't usually come that thick.
Yeah, I told him, I said, man, you came in here way further along than Cleveland and I did as freshmen physically. Yeah, he's way ahead of a curve in that sense. So he'll be a great player here.
KJ's put on 10 pounds, I think, since spring. What have you seen from him?
KJ is really smart, a good football player. You can tell he's been well coached. He's continued to put the work in, just like Xavier when they first got here in January. All the older guys, myself, Cleveland, Rich, and Chris, we all taking both of them under our wing and try to give them everything that we know. We don't know it all, but we know a little bit. So what we can give to them, you know, we definitely do that, because we know that, you know, when we leave here, they got to carry on the tradition of having a great defensive line, and that starts with, you know, passing the torch down to the next guy.
And Davin mentioned that Justin Maskell, kind of like a granddaddy long legs right now.
Yeah,
Just a long, lean athlete.
Yeah, great athlete. I mean, he's going to be a really, really good player here too. You can tell he was really well coached in high school as well. Great intensity. He's big, you know, he's strong, fast. Everything you look for in defensive end, he has it. So he got here a little later, so he's having to learn the plays a little bit slower than the other guys since they enrolled early. But you know, he's coming along just fine. He's diligent, hard worker, and that's all you can ask for in a young guy.
How much different is a healthy Dexter Lawrence this year versus, you know, kind of playing through the nagging injuries that he had to deal with last year?
Difference. probably say a nightmare. A nightmare. That he's a freaky dude, man. To be that big and to be that fast and nimble on his feet, man, it's really, really impressive. And now with him having, a good, healthy ankle and foot, being able to do the things that, he was doing his freshman year again with more knowledge than he had then, scary.
I was a little bit late on the SID. When did they shoot that photo?
Probably like a week before we started camp.
What was it like to be in a part of a photo shoot like that, and to see you four guys get that early recognition?
I mean, it was cool. It's something you grow up as a kid, seeing all the time. People on Sports Illustrated, and to be able to say, 10, 20 years from now, look back and say, man, I was able to accomplish something that I always dreamed about as a kid. It's really cool to be able to say. But all that's on the back burner right now. I don't think anybody cared if we were on the cover of SI. We don't fulfill our potential this season.
Yeah, Austin Bryant, leader of that Clemson defensive front. But I tell you what, guys, I was looking at the Clemson roster, and by my calculations of who they have now and who they are going to be losing on the interior, they're going to lose Christian Wilkins and Albert Huggins. I'm talking about the defensive tackles, the guys right in the middle. Lose those two after this year. In the junior class, of course, Dexter Lawrence, but you stand to lose him this year at Clemson because he can turn pro if he so chooses. And then in the sophomore class, you've got Niles Pinckney, who's played some and perhaps will get more snaps this year. They did not sign. They don't have a redshirt freshman defensive lineman, defensive tackle coming up. Remember, they had the really small class last time out in 2018. 2019 class, or the 2018 class that is coming in now, you look at the interior, and of course they lost Josh Belk. They do have Darnell Jeffries, so that's another one. And then you look at the committed group right now for 2019. They've got 2 interior defensive linemen. The point about all this, it goes back to the kid I was talking about in the 2020 class. They need to recruit some interior defensive linemen right now because they're getting a little bit thin in that area. They will be after these guys leave.
They're thinner than the two, but again, I think a lot of it, a lot of it will be dependent on. I think the strength for them now goes to the exterior, because then you're going to start seeing Xavier Thomas and KJ Henry kind of take center stage. I don't think it's impossible to think that they're going to have the kind of 4-person defensive line like they had this year. That's just too much had to happen right for them to get that to happen. So while the interior might take a step back next year, they will lose nothing on the end with either of those 2 freaks, Thomas or Henry.
Well, and one of those freaks may end up playing inside at some point.
True that.
So that's going to be a key. And I think probably with their size, Phil, I know they don't like to do it too often, but you're going to see guys who will stunt anything to help those young defensive tackles be effective, because they've got an embarrassment of riches right now that most football teams don't see in a decade.
And plus, as Dabo has come to prove over the course of his time, he loves to play a lot of guys. I'm sure there'll be a lot of time, whether it's in that Furman game or the Georgia Southern game, where they basically have to take all the Power Rangers out, put them out, take away their powers, and see exactly what is left there, whether it's a guy like Register, who maybe goes and plays inside, guys like Jabril Robinson, guys of that nature. I mean, there's a lot that could come to pass. And you think about guys who have come and risen to the occasion in positions that we wouldn't exactly expect. I hate to bring up my guy, but Jamie Skalski, who would have thought he would have been a contributor late last year? And he contributed because of the linebacker injuries that Clemson had to Trey Lamar and others.
Well, make a note, Jabril Robinson's left the program.
That's
now.
right.
He's
That's
in
right.
West
That's
Virginia,
right. That's
so
right.
we can't have him.
That's
All right, quick recap. Gary Woodland leads the PGA 6 under 64 for him. Panthers and Buffalo 7-7 in their NFL preseason game. And tomorrow night, back in the studios with everybody. Look forward to that. Thank you, Willie P.
Sir.
Thank you, Professor Tom Hayes. And thank you, Brian Leonard. And thanks to the folks at Furman. Hunter Reed, great man, great SID. We thank him for his help. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.